Ananke, whose name in Greek is Ananke, meaning necessity, was one of the most ancient and powerful beings in Greek mythology, known as a primordial goddess, or protogenos, who embodied the inescapable force of necessity, compulsion, and inevitability. She stood outside the familiar Olympian order of gods, beyond even the Titans, as a cosmic force that came into being at the very dawn of time. In the Orphic tradition, a mystical and philosophical branch of early Greek religion, Ananke appeared self-formed from the void at the beginning of creation. She was described as a vast, incorporeal being, often imagined as serpentine in form, her body winding around and through the forming universe. Her limbs and coils reached out across the breadth of the cosmos, surrounding it entirely, pressing inwards with gentle but unrelenting power. She did not come alone. With her was Chronos, also known as Chronos, the personification of time. Like her, he was serpentine and eternal, and together they formed an inseparable pair. Their bodies wound around one another in a great cosmic embrace, symbolizing the entwined forces of time and necessity. Together they crushed the cosmic egg, the first container of all potential existence, causing it to burst. From this egg came the elements that formed the world: earth below, the heavens above, and the sea between them. It was this act that created the ordered universe from the raw and chaotic potential that existed before. Ananke and Chronos did not rest after the creation. They continued to move around the universe in their spiraling forms, driving the eternal rotation of the heavens and the ceaseless passage of time, a movement that even the gods themselves could not escape. Their presence marked the rhythm of the cosmos, the heartbeat of fate and change that shaped all things. In some traditions, their union also brought forth chaos, the first gap or chasm; Aether, the bright upper air of heaven; Phanes, the first shining god of creation; and sometimes Erebos, the darkness of the underworld. The details vary, but the idea remains that from necessity and time came all the other forces of existence. Ananke was said to be beyond the control of any other deity. Even Zeus, the king of the Olympians, could not challenge her will. She represented what must happen, those fixed points in existence that no one could change. It is said that she and Chronos stood at the edge of the cosmos, where no one could reach, ensuring the world turned, the stars moved, and fate unfolded as it must. The philosopher Plato mentions Ananke in his Republic, naming her as the mother of the Moirai, or fates, the three sisters who spin, measure, and cut the thread of each life. This makes Ananke not only the force that drives the world, but also the origin of personal destiny, determining the path every living being must follow. The ancients may have feared her, but they also respected her deeply, for she was the unseen framework that held the universe together. Few images of Ananke remain, but one Athenian red figure, Lakythos, from the 5th century BCE, may portray her, a torch-bearing winged figure, a symbol of light in darkness and direction in chaos, labeled with her name. Her alternate names in various traditions add more layers to her meaning. She was called Anankai in the Ionic dialect, and also known as Adrasteia or Adrasteia, meaning the inescapable. Another name, Tekmor, meant purpose or end, suggesting that Ananke was not just necessity, but also the final goal or endpoint of all things. A fragment from the poet Alcman speaks of the early forces of creation, naming Thetis as the first, followed by Poros, the contriver, possibly Chronos, and Tekmor, possibly another name for Ananke, as one who came after, setting boundaries and establishing order. This shows how deeply the Greeks understood the idea of necessity as something more than fate or force. It was the shape of destiny itself. Ananke did not interfere directly in mortal lives as the gods of Olympus often did. Instead, she was the backdrop, the silent law behind the laws, the truth that things must follow a certain path. She was the tension behind choices, the pressure behind every outcome, the pull of the inevitable. Her power was so absolute that even myths rarely gave her a voice or personality. She was too great for that, more concept than character, more principle than person. And yet, in her silence, she spoke louder than all the other gods. for she governed the one thing none could escape. As the universe continues to expand and change, Ananke's presence, imagined by ancient poets and philosophers, reminds us of the boundaries and patterns that still shape everything, from the movement of galaxies to the passing of seconds in a human life. She is the cosmic rule that binds all things, the serpent of necessity that winds unseen through all existence, ever present, ever watching, ever real. In the oldest myths from the poets of early Greece, we hear of the world before the gods, when everything was formless and unclear, like a sea of mixed matter without shape or direction. The poet Alcman tells us that first there was Thetis, a goddess not of the sea as she would later be known, but of pure creation itself. She was the beginning and end at once, like a craftsman who holds both the tools and the finished shape in her hands. Then came Poros, whose name means contriver or pathmaker, the one who gave shape to the chaos. He arrived when things were starting to take form, representing the beginning of order, the one who makes things possible. Right after him came Tekmor, a word that means end, limit, or goal, who gave purpose and set boundaries. In this vision, Poros and Tekmor are not just beings, but the forces of beginning and end that arise naturally with creation. Every start contains the path to its finish. Everything in the early world, Alcman says, was like raw bronze, a metal waiting to be formed, and Thetis was like the one who molds it into something meaningful. After Poros and Tekmor came Skotos, or darkness, because there was no sun or moon yet, no light, only shadow. Later, light would appear in the form of Hemera, day, Selene, moon, and the brief sparks called marmarugas, or flashings. But first there was only dark matter, shapeless and silent. Then, from another set of ancient teachings known as the Orphic cosmogony, we learn that at the very beginning there was hydros, water, and with it, mud, a mix of water and earth. From this, the earth, or Gaia, hardened into being. These two, earth and water, were the first principles, the basic elements. But there was something even more mysterious before them, something the Orphic poet Orpheus does not name directly. Instead, he stays silent, as if to say it was beyond words, a power too great to explain. Then came Chronos, or Chronos, which means time, appearing as a great serpent or draken, covered in wings and with 3 heads, one of a lion, one of a bull, and one that looked like a god. This was not the hero Heracles of later myths, but a cosmic version of him, a name given to this strange and mighty being to show his strength and mystery. Wrapped around time was Ananke, known also as Adrasteia, the goddess of necessity, compulsion, and inevitability. She was not a body, but a force, incorporeal, meaning without form, and her arms stretched through the entire universe, touching everything that was and would ever be. She and time were bound together, equal and opposite, spinning and shaping the world by their very presence. This joining of time and necessity marked the moment when all things could be created and shaped. Together, they stood as the third great principle of the cosmos, neither matter nor mind, but the structure and purpose of everything. In these myths, everything begins with darkness and shapelessness, but soon creation comes, first with possibility, then with direction, and finally with light. It is not a story of gods with human faces, but of deep forces that hold everything together. Creation, order, end, darkness, time, and necessity. Ananke, as the silent power that sets all limits, was not just a goddess, but the very law of the universe, the reason things are as they are and not otherwise. Even the gods who would later rule from Mount Olympus could not escape her pull. She was the final say in every action, the edge of every path, the shape behind all things. When we speak of fate or inevitability today, we still echo the name of Ananke, the unseen force who touches the edges of the cosmos with quiet, endless purpose. In the mystical teachings of the Orphics, those secretive poets and philosophers of ancient Greece who spoke of the hidden structure of the cosmos, the earliest stages of creation are described not with heroes or wars, but with deep symbols, primordial forces, and divine ideas. At first, there were three principles that shaped all things: hydros, which means water; mud, the thick substance from which the earth, Jaya, hardened; and something left unspoken, something before them both, often hinted at as thesis, or pure creation itself. Yet in later Orphic traditions, especially in the sacred writings known as the Rhapsodies, this unspoken beginning was set aside. Instead, the myths chose to focus on something that could be described, something more understandable, something expressible to the human mind. And so, the divine story begins with the third principle, the one after the first two, Chronos, or Chronos, the god of unaging time, who existed not in human form, but as a vast winged serpent that coiled endlessly through the void. Chronos was not ordinary time, like clocks or calendars, but eternal time, the endless motion and rhythm behind all things. From Chronos came three children, three forces that shaped the very fabric of the universe: Ether, which is the bright upper air, the light that shines above us; Chaos, the yawning gap or chasm of space, the endless open air beneath the heavens; and Erebos, a deep, misty darkness that filled the places in between. These three, born of time itself, are not just elements of the world. They are states of being, moods of the universe, the conditions through which everything else could appear. But Chronos did not stop there. From these three, Ether, Chaos, and Erebos, he produced a great cosmic egg, a sacred object that held the seeds of everything to come. This egg floated in the vastness, cradled in the arms of space, darkness, and light, and within it rested something beyond understanding. Inside the egg were two natures, male and female, the principles of heaven and earth, Oranos and Jaya. These were not yet born, but their potential filled the shell, and in the very heart of the egg stirred a god beyond gods, Phanes, the firstborn, whose name means the one who shines, or the one who brings light. Phanes is sometimes called Protagonus, the firstborn, and he is the embodiment of all life, the spark that awakens form and order from the formless void. When the egg finally broke open, it was Phanes who emerged, blazing with power. He was no ordinary being. He had golden wings upon his shoulders, so he could fly through the heavens, bulls' heads growing from his sides, showing strength and fertility, and on his head curled a great serpent, a reminder of the divine time and the coiled beginnings from which he came. His body shimmered with the forms of all animals, showing that he carried within himself the blueprint of all living things. Phanes was both male and female, a being of unity, because before the world could be divided into opposites, it had to be one, and in being both, Phanes became the source of generation, the one who could give birth to everything that followed. From him came the stars, the seasons, the gods, and the souls of all living beings. He was the divine mind, the hidden light, the one who sang the world into shape. In the Orphic vision, Phanes is the first god we can truly speak of, the first to have a name, the first whose nature can be understood, not fully, but enough to call him by name and see him as the source. The gods who came before him, Thesis, Chronos, Ananke, are too vast, too abstract, too much like laws of reality rather than personalities. But Phanes marks the beginning of expression, of order, of language, of form. The Orphics believed that the soul of the universe emerged through stages, first matter, then time, then necessity, then form. And Phanes is the first form, the one who shines through the chaos and brings clarity. That is why, in later Orphic theology, the older figures were pushed into the background, left mysterious and silent, and Phanes was placed at the beginning of the story. Because Phanes could be seen, spoken of, worshipped, he was the first light in the dark. After Phanes came other gods, Nyx, night, who wrapped him in her wings, and Oranos and Jaya, who gave shape to the sky and earth. But none of them could exist without Phanes, who brought the world into movement. And it is from Phanes that the divine spark passes down, through generations of gods, through the world, through every soul, so that even now, when we speak, think, or dream, We echo the first light that came from the egg. Phanes, then, is more than a god. He is the act of becoming, the first beauty, the light that shows things as they are. And the cosmic egg, which held him, is the mystery of beginnings, the place where all opposites are held in harmony, where nothing is yet split, where the universe waits in silence before bursting into song. So when the Orphic poets speak of the birth of the world, they are not telling a tale of war or kings. They are whispering the secret of how reality wakes up. First the silence, then the serpent of time, then the darkness, the light, the space between, then the egg, then the shining one, and then everything. In this ancient vision of the world's beginning, taken from the sacred writings attributed to the Orphics and echoed by Epicurus, the birth of the universe is described in a way that blends deep thought with symbolic imagery. At the center of this origin story stands Protagonos, also known as Phanes, the firstborn god. He is the third god of the third divine triad, and is seen not just as one god among many, but as the very force of order and structure that makes the world whole. In this theology, he is even identified with Zeus, not the Zeus of thunder and Olympus, but Zeus as a symbol of divine arrangement, the one who brings harmony to the entire universe. Because of this role, he is also named Pan, meaning all, because in him is contained the unity of everything that exists. He is not separate from the world, but rather the world itself takes its shape through him. All things are connected through Phanes, the shining one who makes form out of chaos. This understanding of divine structure is tied to the image of the universe's beginning, which the philosopher Epicurus also describes using a powerful and simple image. The world began like an egg. This is not a literal egg like a bird might lay, but a symbol of potential, of something closed and full of hidden life, something about to break open. Around this cosmic egg is the wind. Again, not just a gust of air, but the joined and eternal forms of two great powers, Chronos, or Chronos, who is time itself, and Ananke, who is necessity or fate. These two are not imagined as human figures, but as vast, powerful, and invisible forces. They are often shown wrapped around the egg in the shape of a serpent, a never-ending coil, winding around the beginning of all things. Their embrace is not gentle, it is tight, pressing in on the egg, squeezing it, and by this squeezing, they begin to shape nature itself. The pressure they apply is not random. It is the very force that causes the first separation, the first movement, the first division of what had been one into what will be many. As they squeeze the egg harder and harder, all the matter inside starts to shift and respond. The world begins to divide into two main parts, like two halves of the shell cracking apart. From this division, the lighter and finer particles, the small invisible pieces of matter that are quick and pure, float upward. These rise into the higher parts of the cosmos, becoming aether, which is called bright air, and the most refined form of wind, which is probably what was meant by chaos or chaos. These are not chaotic in the way we think of the word today. Instead, they are the open, airy spaces above the world, where there is clarity, light, and stillness. These higher regions form the sky, the atmosphere, and the divine spaces where clarity and spirit live. Meanwhile, the heavier, thicker, and dirtier atoms, the coarser forms of matter, do not rise. They fall, pulled down by their own nature. They become the earth, known in Greek as Ge or Gaia, the solid ground beneath our feet. This includes both the dry land and the flowing waters, which are called pontos, the sea. These two, the earth and the sea, form the physical world, full of weight and shape and depth. It is in this lower realm that life will one day emerge, built from the denser materials that could not float upward. So, from one egg, and through the tight embrace of time and necessity, the world is born through separation. And even though the parts have been split into lighter and heavier, into high and low, they all remain connected through the forces that shaped them. The atoms, the building blocks of all matter, are not passive. Epicurus says they move by themselves, through themselves. This means they are not guided by gods in the usual sense, nor do they wait for permission to act. Instead, They have a kind of natural motion, a built-in energy that makes them shift, combine, and form new things. It is through this motion, through the free but shaped movement of atoms, that the world continues to grow and change. The universe, then, is both free and necessary. The atoms move on their own, but the conditions set by time and necessity, by Chronos and Ananke, shape what is possible. This balance between freedom and limit is at the heart of the story. And always, holding this structure together, is the figure of Chronus, the firstborn, the shining light, the one who gives the scattered pieces a sense of meaning. He is the one who makes the split world whole again, not by erasing the division, but by giving it pattern, order, and beauty. Through him, the upper and lower worlds speak to one another. Through him, light meets matter, and spirit meets form. Through him, the universe becomes a place not only of substance but of harmony. And so, the world we know, with its sky and sea, its earth and air, its winds and waters, comes from a single act of pressure, from the slow, inevitable constriction of the egg of all things. This image, simple, powerful, and rich with meaning, was the way ancient thinkers tried to explain the mystery of beginnings. It shows how everything we see today was once hidden, compact, waiting, and how through the touch of time and the grip of fate, that hidden world cracked open and began to sing. In this cosmic unfolding, the egg does not disappear. It becomes everything. The wind does not vanish. It becomes the breath of life. And Chronus, the light that was born from the pressure, continues to shine behind the world, reminding us that even in the darkest, tightest places, something new can be born. This vision is not just a story of the past. It is a pattern that repeats in every act of creation, in every birth, in every beginning. The ancient egg still turns in the heart of things, still waiting to open, and within it, the atoms still stir, the wind still coils, and the light of Chronus still waits to rise. In the earliest times, before the shaping of the world as we know it, the universe was in a state of deep and vast disorder, called chaos, or chaos. From within this ancient, endless confusion emerged Ananke, the stern and powerful force of inevitability. She was not born, she simply was, present from the very start. Alongside her was Chronos, or Chronos, the spirit of unaging time. These two, Ananke and Chronos, were not ordinary gods with bodies and faces, but were mighty forces, cosmic powers, wrapped in serpent-like coils that had no beginning and no end. Their forms moved in a circular, never-breaking loop, winding like a snake around all that existed. Inside these coils, they held the beginnings of everything. They gave birth to Aether, the pure light and upper air, and to a strange and beautiful being, Eros, the god of love and desire, who was also known by other names like Phanes. This Eros was not the small boy with wings found in later myths, but something far more powerful. He was the force of attraction that first brought things together. Eros was two-sexed, meaning he had both male and female within him, and two-faced, symbolizing that he looked both forward and backward in time. He was glorious, shining, and the very first to be revealed from the darkness. He was the ever-born one, the one who never stops becoming. Born from Night herself, or Nyx, he was her radiant child. This Eros, or Chronus as some called him, was the first to be revealed, the first god to appear, shining out of chaos like a light from the deepest black. The world began to take form from this moment of appearance, and within the great wheel of the sky and the uncountable stars, all things were still being turned and spun by the serpent-shaped wind, that coiled breath of time and necessity that never ceased its motion. Their force was not only in the beginning, but stayed through all time, guiding the movement of heaven and earth. Ananke, the force of necessity, was not gentle or kind. She was stern, unbending, absolute. Even the greatest of gods could not escape her hold. She was not evil or cruel, but she was beyond mercy, beyond change. What she demanded must happen, no matter the cost. In the world of mortals and gods alike, Ananke was a force that bound all things together, not with love or kindness, but with absolute rule. Her power is shown in the tragic stories told by the ancient poets. In one tale, the mighty king Agamemnon was forced to wear the yoke of necessity. A yoke is a heavy wooden beam used to control animals, and in this case it meant he was trapped by fate, unable to choose freely. Though his heart turned and his mind swayed, though he did not want to, he agreed to sacrifice his own daughter, Iphigenia, so that the goddess Artemis would allow his ships to sail to Troy. This was not an act of cruelty from Agamemnon, but one of surrender to Ananke. He was caught in her power and had no choice but to obey. Ananke demanded the price and he paid it, broken but bound. Another tale comes from the voice of Prometheus, the titan who gave fire to humanity and was punished for it. He too speaks of Ananke. Chained to a mountain, he tells us he must bear his punishment, because there is no way to resist what Ananke has decreed. No pleading, no strength, no power can change her will. He knows his suffering must run its full course. Only after countless torments and infinite pain will he be set free, and even that is part of what has been fated. Ananke's will cannot be delayed or undone. She is more powerful than skill, more powerful than knowledge, more powerful than all effort. Where humans and gods try to shape their own paths, Ananke is the path. She is what must be. Even the Moirai, the fates who spin and cut the threads of life, work under her. She does not bring death or sorrow or joy. She brings what is necessary. If there is a law that rules all things, it is Ananke. Her name is whispered not in praise but in awe. She is the structure of reality itself. And Chronos, who coils with her, is the endless flow of time, always moving, never stopping. Together their breath drives the stars, their wind turns the sky, their embrace holds all the heavens. This is the serpentiform wind spoken of in the old texts, the twisting, circling breath of these two powers, moving like a snake through the air, unseen but ever present. It is this force that spins the stars, that makes night follow day, that guides the planets in their paths. Without it, nothing would hold. And within the coils of time and necessity, Eros, the light of Phanes, shines as the first spark of becoming, the first urge that called all things into motion. He is born of night but brings brightness. He is the power that makes the world desire itself, that brings pieces together, that creates unity out of brokenness. He does not fight Ananke or Chronos. He lives within their hold and finds space to grow. From this trio, Ananke, Chronos, and Phanes, all things have come. They are not three in conflict, but three that work together. Time gives the movement, necessity gives the shape, and Eros gives the life. Everything we see, everything that is, turns within their pattern. The stars revolve, the wind moves, the earth spins, and we live, all under the unseen pressure of their eternal presence. They are not gods like those found on mountaintops. They are the framework of existence itself. To the ancient poets, this was not just myth, but truth spoken in symbols. And though the world has changed and the stories have faded, this idea remains powerful, that in the beginning there was chaos, and from within it, necessity and time took hold, and from their union came light, love, and the shape of the world. Ananke does not ask for worship. She does not answer prayers, but all must obey her, from the stars in the sky to the thoughts in our heads. She is the reason things are as they are. She is the law before all laws, the power behind all powers. She is the one who decides what must happen, and within her grip, time moves forward, ever spinning, and the light of the firstborn continues to shine, calling all things to rise and move and become. In the great unfolding of cosmic law and fate, Prometheus, chained to the peak of Mount Caucasus, speaks with chilling clarity about the powers that hold even Zeus himself in balance. For he tells us that the true helmsman of necessity, Ananke, is not Zeus, but the Moirai, the three-shaped fates, and the Erinyes, the mindful furies, and that even Zeus cannot escape what they have foretold, for their word is unshakable. And when the chorus questions whether Zeus might truly be less powerful than these forces, Prometheus answers with quiet certainty that indeed he is, for not even the mighty Lord of Heaven can escape his own destiny. A revelation so grave that the chorus is warned to be patient, for it concerns a solemn secret, a prophecy that any son born of Zeus and the sea nymph Thetis would one day depose him, so it must be kept hidden. And still Prometheus, defiant even before the chorus of gods and the swirling judgment of necessity, declares defiantly that no matter how Zeus might act, no matter how high he raises him, or how low he casts him into the dark flood of stern necessity, he, Prometheus, shall never know true death, for he is immortal, beyond both power and fear, beyond the reach of fate's final cut. For though Zeus may rule in thunder, and though he may summon storms or exile gods, his reign is bound, just as all things are, by the silent, inexorable laws of Ananke, woven by the fates, guarded by the Furies, shaping even the king of gods, reminding all who hear that power without destiny is nothing, and that no throne is safe while the threads of fate and necessity hold strong in their hidden hands. Throughout the ages, the unyielding force of Ananke, or necessity, has been recognized as the strongest power, one that no mortal or god can escape or cure, no matter how much knowledge or wisdom is sought. Even the ancient Thracian tablets, said to be inscribed by the voice of Orpheus, the legendary singer and prophet, contain no remedy against it, and not even the countless healing herbs and medicines gathered by Phoebos, also known as Apollo, the god who aids mortals and guides healers like the sons of Asclepios, can relieve the weight of this inescapable law. Empedocles, the philosopher from the 5th century before our time, speaks of this law of stern Ananke as an unbreakable and eternal decree made by the gods themselves, bravely sworn and sealed so that it cannot be undone. He explains that if any daimon, meaning a spirit or divine being born for everlasting life, commits a grave sin such as murder or breaks sacred oaths by lying and betrayal, their soul is condemned to wander far from happiness, cast out for 30,000 years, a number representing a vast, almost unimaginable length of time. During this time, the soul cannot rest, but must suffer endless hardship, changing forms and suffering various kinds of pain and punishment. The heavens, unable to tolerate such impurity, force this soul down to the sea, but the sea cannot keep it either and spits it back onto the dry land, which then rejects it by casting it under the burning sun, harsh and unforgiving. From the sun, the soul is thrown backward, spinning violently through the heavenly vortex, and is forced to travel from one group to another, rejected and hated by all. This restless journey shows the power of Ananke to punish and bind even the divine spirits, marking the endless consequences of sin and wrongdoing under this cosmic law. Likewise, Plato, in his Republic, touches on this same idea, portraying Ananke as a force more powerful than any mortal or god, a law that governs the universe and the fate of all beings, controlling the order of things and making sure that everything fulfills its destined course. In this vision, no one escapes the rule of necessity and fate, as they are the ultimate forces that hold the world together and determine the destiny of gods and men alike. Thus, from the ancient Thracian prophecies through the wisdom of the great philosophers and the hymns of poets, the truth remains clear and simple. Ananke is the unstoppable power that shapes all existence, punishes sin, and binds all living beings to their destined path, with no cure or escape, a reminder that necessity is the foundation upon which the universe stands and all things must obey. Around the great force of Ananke, the necessity that governs all, there were 3 powerful goddesses known as the Moirai, or Fates, who sat evenly spaced on their thrones, each one watching over a part of time and destiny. These daughters of Ananke were clothed in white robes and wore simple bands around their heads, symbols of their sacred roles. Their names were Lachesis, Clotho, and Atropos, and together they sang in harmony with the enchanting music of the Sirens, the sirens known for their irresistible songs. Lachesis, the eldest, sang of things that had already happened, the past, Clotho, the spinner of life, sang of the present, the things that are, and Atropos, the unchangeable, sang of the future, the things that are yet to be. These three sisters controlled the fate of all beings, weaving the threads of life and death according to the unyielding law of Ananke, reminding all that destiny is fixed and cannot be altered. Lachesis, called the maiden daughter of necessity, represented the portion of life allotted to each person, measuring out the length of the thread spun by Clotho, who gave life its beginning by spinning the thread of birth and existence, while Atropos held the scissors to cut the thread, bringing the end of life and sealing fate. This sacred trio stands as the ultimate powers over mortal lives and divine plans, showing the deep connection between necessity and destiny in the ancient worldview. In the world of the gods and men, the arts and skills flourished under the guidance of divine powers, with the Musai, or muses, inspiring music and poetry, Hephaestus crafting metals with skill and fire, and Athena weaving intricate patterns, each contributing to the beauty and order of the universe. Zeus, the mighty ruler of gods and men, held the role of pilot, guiding the course of all things with steady control. Among these forces, Eros, the god of love and desire, moved the hearts of gods and mortals alike, stirring in them the love of beauty and harmony. Unlike chaos and conflict that once troubled the heavens, the dominion of Ananke brought a new order where the love of beautiful things led to great benefits for both gods and humans, fostering creation, art, and harmony. This love, pure and focused on what is beautiful, stands apart from ugliness and strife, reminding us that even under the strict laws of necessity and fate, there is room for growth, joy, and the pursuit of what is good and beautiful in the world. History itself, as recorded by Herodotus, tells us of the wise Themistocles, a great general of ancient Athens, who brought hope and help to the people of Andros during troubled times. He made clear to them that the Athenians came not alone, but with the support of two powerful gods, among them Pytho, the goddess of persuasion and goodwill, who brought the strength of friendly words and wise counsel. This story highlights how divine forces worked through human leaders to guide and protect communities, showing the close ties between gods, fate, necessity, and the affairs of men. Together, these ancient teachings and stories reveal a world where the unstoppable force of necessity rules all. But within its bounds, the threads of life, love, art, and human courage intertwine to create the unfolding story of existence, reminding us that while fate is fixed, the beauty and order inspired by the gods continue to shape the lives of all beings beneath the heavens. In the tale of the people of Andros, we see a clear example of how the forces of gods and fate shaped the lives and fortunes of entire communities. For it was said that the Athenians were favored by powerful gods like Pytho, the goddess of persuasion, and Ananke, the goddess of necessity, who together urged the Andrians to contribute money in support of Athens. But the people of Andros, aware of their own harsh reality, replied with a firm acceptance of their fate, explaining that while Athens was blessed and prosperous under the service of these powerful and helpful gods, they themselves were governed by two far less kind deities who had no desire to aid them or leave their island. These gods were Penia, the spirit of poverty, and Amacania, meaning helplessness, who remained with them endlessly, binding the Andrians in a cycle of scarcity and inability. Their claim was simple but profound. Since they were in the hands of these unyielding gods, there was no point in offering money or resistance, for no power Athens possessed could overcome the deep-rooted helplessness that defined their lives. This exchange captures the ancient understanding that human affairs, cities, and peoples are shaped not only by will or strength, but by the invisible hands of divine powers, fate, and necessity, which often decide who prospers and who struggles. The voice of necessity was also heard in the words of the ancient poet Apollonius Rhodius, who in his epic Argonautica revealed how no mortal serves a harsher mistress than Ananke, the force of necessity, who compels even the strongest to act against their wishes, driving them forward on paths they might not choose freely. This idea of being bound by necessity, compelled by forces greater than oneself, was a common thread in ancient thought, reminding humans of their limits and the laws that govern the cosmos beyond human control. The poet Callimachus, in his hymn to Delos, echoed this belief, recognizing Ananke as a great and mighty goddess, and admitting that refusal or defiance was not his own choice, but the will of necessity itself, which none could escape. Ananke was not a god to be bargained with or resisted lightly. She was the inexorable power that made things happen, the eternal law that all must obey. This view of necessity as a great and mighty force was repeated in the work of Nonnus, whose epic Dionysiaca, though composed centuries later, carried forward the ancient respect and awe for Ananke's unyielding rule. Together, these texts form a picture of the world where human beings and even gods are bound by forces beyond themselves, where persuasion, poverty, helplessness, and necessity interact to shape destinies and lives, showing that in the great drama of existence, no one escapes the power of Ananke, the great goddess of necessity, who rules over all with unbreakable chains. All the bitter things that fate holds, spun by the wreathed spindle of apportioned necessity, known as Ananke, are threads that the Moirai, the fates, weave into the lives of gods and mortals alike. And whether those threads obey the design laid out by Ananke is the measure of what each soul must endure. In the ancient epic Dionysiaca, the sorrowful voice of Ino, fleeing from her murderous husband, cries out in despair, recognizing Ananke as a great god whose power cannot be escaped, asking with fear and resignation, "Where will you flee?" This highlights the overwhelming presence of necessity in the world, a force so great that even gods must bow before it. The Byzantine lexicon Suedas emphasizes this truth clearly, stating that with Ananke, not even gods dare to fight, marking her as a power that rules above all divine beings. The epigrams further echo this understanding, saying that the all-wise Ananke taught a hero to find an escape even from Hades, the realm of the dead, demonstrating her role as the ultimate authority over life, death, and fate itself. It is said in ancient proverbs that the gods do not fight against Ananke, teaching mortals that it is wise to accept what is given and to be content with what life and fate provide, for resistance is futile against this unyielding force. The reverence for Ananke went beyond words and stories into the physical realm, as described by Pausanias in his travelogue of Greece. On the Acropolis of Corinth, there stood a sanctuary dedicated to Ananke alongside Bia, the goddess of force, a place so sacred and powerful that it was customary for people not to enter it lightly or casually. This shows the deep respect and perhaps fear people held for the force of necessity, acknowledging it as a power intertwined with raw strength and the strict laws of the universe.
Alongside Ananke stands Chronos, often transliterated as Chronos or Chronus, the god of time, a primordial figure emerging self-formed at the very dawn of creation in Orphic cosmogony. Chronos is imagined not as a human figure, but as an incorporeal being shaped like a serpent, with 3 heads, one of a man, one of a bull, and one of a lion. This tri-headed form symbolizes the all-encompassing nature of time, reflecting different qualities and the power to govern all life and change. Time, as Chronos, moves without rest, ever winding and unwinding the cycles of existence, like the wheel of the zodiac that marks the passing of the ages and the turning of the heavens. In the stories and artworks that survive from ancient times, Chronos is often shown as a serpentine god coiling around the cosmos, reminding all that time is a constant force shaping the fate of gods and mortals alike. Together, Ananke and Chronos represent the inseparable forces of necessity and time, governing all things from the highest divine realms to the smallest details of mortal life, guiding the unfolding of events according to a pattern no one can alter. Their power is so complete that it stands beyond the control of even the mightiest gods, placing all beings under their rule and demanding acceptance of the course laid down by fate and time. This ancient understanding of the world, where fate spun by Ananke and the endless flow of Chronos bind everything in the universe, has been passed down through stories, sacred places, and art, reminding all who hear it of the great forces that govern existence, and the wisdom in recognizing and accepting the paths they create. Chronos, the primordial god of time, is described as having a consort, the serpentine goddess Ananke, who embodies inevitability. Together they wrapped the primordial world egg within their entwined coils, a powerful image symbolizing the beginning of creation. With great force and divine will, this pair split the world egg apart, causing it to divide and form the ordered universe as we know it, the earth, the sea, and the sky. This act of separation and formation was the moment when chaos gave way to order, and the cosmos began its eternal cycle. After this great work of creation, Chronos and Ananke continued to circle the cosmos, their movement driving the rotation of the heavens, marking the passage of time that flows endlessly without pause. Chronos in this role was not merely a god of time, but a cosmic force, the very essence of eternal change and the unstoppable flow of existence. His figure, although often confused with that of the Titan Chronos, known popularly as Father Time, was a distinct and deeper cosmological entity. In some traditions, especially among the Orphic mystics, Chronos was merged or identified with Phanes, the firstborn creator god who brought light and life into the universe. Sometimes he was also equated with the Titan Ophion, another primordial figure connected with the early cosmos. Across cultures, Chronos had parallels, such as the Phoenician god Olam, who represented eternal time and whose name was transcribed in Greek as Oulamos. In Greco-Roman art, Chronos was often depicted as Ion, the personification of eternity. In mosaics, Ion is shown holding a wheel inscribed with the signs of the zodiac, symbolizing the eternal cycle of the stars and the passage of the year. Gaia, the personification of Mother Earth, is usually shown reclining peacefully at his feet, grounding this cosmic eternity in the life-giving earth. The poet Nonnus describes Ion as an old man with long white hair and a beard, reflecting wisdom and the endless passage of ages. However, in many mosaic artworks, the figure of Ion appears youthful and vigorous, emphasizing the ongoing renewal and eternal vitality of time itself. When we consider Chronos' family according to ancient Orphic traditions, the picture becomes even richer. Some sources describe his parents as Hydros, the primal water, and Gaia, the earth, connecting him to the basic elements of creation. In other accounts, Chronos is said to have emerged spontaneously at the moment of creation, with no parents, embodying the idea that time itself is eternal and self-existing. Through his union with Ananke, Chronos is said to have produced offspring vital to the cosmos. These include chaos, the yawning void or space, aether, the bright upper air or pure light, and Phanes, the shining being who brings life and creation into form. In some fragments, Chronos and Ananke are also linked with Erebus, the darkness that fills the underworld, and together they formed Phanes and the world egg, the source of all existence. Other Orphic texts mention Chronos as the origin of chaos and aether alone, emphasizing the birth of space and light as fundamental elements arising from time and inevitability. From aether, the world egg was formed, containing Gaia, the earth, and Ouranos, the sky representing the whole physical universe, enclosed within this cosmic egg. Beyond these primordial beings, Chronos is connected to other offspring representing the forces that shape the cycles of life and fate. Nyx, the goddess of night, bore Hemera, the day, and the Moirai, the three fates who govern the destiny of all beings, showing how time gives rise to the flow of day and night and the order of fate. Additionally, the 12 Horai, goddesses of the seasons and natural order, are said to be descended from Chronos' line, marking the passage of time through the rhythms of nature. All these relationships highlight how Chronos and Ananke form the foundation of the universe's order, setting the stage for the unfolding of all life and events within the vast cycles of time and necessity. The image of Chronos and Ananke coiling around the cosmos, splitting the world egg and setting the stars and seasons in motion, conveys the deep ancient understanding that time and necessity are the twin forces behind creation, shaping everything that exists and moves through the eternal dance of birth, growth, decay, and renewal. In this view, the cosmos is not random but carefully ordered by these primal powers, which govern all from the movement of the heavens to the fate of every creature. Through their union and actions, the endless cycle of existence began, and the universe continues to turn, driven by the inexorable flow of time and the binding force of necessity, woven forever into the fabric of life. In the earliest Greek ideas about the universe, the god Chronos appears with many names and forms, each reflecting different aspects of time and creation, known also as Chronos or Cronus, and sometimes as Eon or Poros. Chronos represents a portion of time that cannot be precisely measured, unlike the fixed hours or seasons. His name means a stretch or portion of time, an idea more fluid and vast than the orderly divisions humans later used to mark the day or year. Ancient poets and thinkers spoke of Chronos as a force both creative and controlling, shaping the unfolding of the cosmos and the order of all things. One of the oldest surviving descriptions comes from the 7th century before our time, in a fragment attributed to the lyric poet Alcman. In his telling, first came Thetis, which means creation itself, the beginning of all that exists. After creation came Poros, the contriver or planner, sometimes thought to be another name for Chronos. Poros is the one who brings order from confusion, the first to set things in place and begin the shaping of the world. Following Poros came Tekmor, meaning ordinance or law, which some believe to be linked to Ananke, the goddess of necessity and fate. Alcman's vision is of the universe as a progression from chaos to order. At the start, matter was formless and confused, lacking shape or purpose. Then, Poros the planner arrived to begin the work of arranging all things. Tekmor followed, bringing rules and limits, the structure by which order could hold. In this way, Poros represents beginnings, the creative spark, while Tekmor represents ends, the final laws that keep everything in balance. Alcman describes these forces as ancient and powerful, older than even light and dark as we know them. Before the sun or moon existed, before day and night had meaning, there was only darkness, called skotos or erebos, the black void where nothing yet stirred. Yet at this very first moment, alongside Poros and Tekmor, Skotos existed too, the raw darkness from which light and time would emerge. As things began to take shape, light came into being, Amar or day, and Malana, the moon, both essential parts of the new world that was forming. These were not just simple moments of day and night, but symbols of the growing order and cycle that would rule all life and time. This early vision of the cosmos shows that time itself was born out of confusion and darkness, emerging with the forces that bring change, rule, and balance. Chronos, or Poros, was the beginning of this great transformation, the creative force that helped bring form to the formless and time to the timeless. His role was not just to mark the passing of moments, but to lead the unfolding of the universe from the very start, working with the law of necessity, Ananke, to set limits and bring destiny into shape. In this ancient view, the universe began not with a single moment or event, but with the coming together of these powerful forces, creation, planning, law, and time, each playing their part to bring the world into being. Chronos is both a god and a concept, representing time itself in its broadest sense, endless and flowing, shaping the cosmos as it moves forward. Through these stories, the ancients sought to understand how everything came to be ordered and why time governs all things, from the stars in the sky to the fate of mortals on earth. This understanding shaped much of Greek thought about the world, showing that time and necessity are the deepest powers behind life and change, moving everything from darkness into light, from chaos into order. In the beginning, before anything else, there was only water, known as hydros, and earth, called mud, from which the solid land, G or Jaya, the earth, came into being. These two, water and earth, were the first principles, the earliest things to exist, forming the foundation of the world as we know it. Yet before even these two, there was something deeper, something beyond words, a mystery so profound that it was left unspoken, its very silence suggesting that it is beyond human understanding. After these first principles came a powerful and strange being, Chronos, or time, who was born from the union of earth and water. This Chronos was not just any god, but took the form of a great serpent, a dragon with many heads, a bull's head, a lion's head, and a god's face at the center. This serpent had wings upon its shoulders, and it was both mighty and eternal, known as unaging time, a force that never dies or stops. Alongside Chronos stood Ananke, also known as inevitability or compulsion. She was incorporeal, meaning she had no physical body, but her presence stretched throughout the entire universe, reaching its furthest edges with outstretched arms. Ananke represented the force of necessity, the unbreakable laws that govern everything, binding the cosmos in order and law. In this ancient vision, Chronos and Ananke were closely linked, two sides of the same power that shapes all existence, sometimes called adrasteia. Ananke symbolized the inescapable fate and the natural order that could not be changed, while Chronos, as time itself, drove the endless cycles of creation and destruction. Together they formed the foundation of all that is, representing essence and existence in the universe. It is said that Chronos was bisexual, symbolizing the universal cause of generation and life. holding within himself the power to create and bring forth all things. This idea reflects a deep understanding that creation comes from a unity of opposites, the male and female forces combined as one in the cosmic order. Over time, the ancient Orphic teachings moved away from focusing on the first two principles, water and earth, and even the silent, ineffable one before them. Instead, they focused on the third principle, Chronos, or time, as the starting point for understanding the universe. This shift suggests that the earliest forms of the cosmos, though important, were mysterious and hidden, while time was something more accessible to human thought and speech, something that could be grasped and expressed. In the Orphic tradition, Chronos is the great unaging time, the father of other primal forces, Aether, the bright and moist upper air, and Chaos, the vast empty space or chasm below. Along with these came Erebos, the misty darkness that lies beneath, completing the early triad of essential elements. These offspring of Chronos represent the essential building blocks of the cosmos, the bright light above, the dark space below, and the mystery between. Among these powers, Chronos also created a cosmic egg, a great symbol of birth and creation. This egg came from Chronos and was formed among the primal forces of air, space, and darkness. From this cosmic egg, the third great triad of divine beings emerged. This triad included the two natures within the egg itself, male and female, represented by Ornos, the sky or heaven, and Gaia, the earth. These two were the parents of all things, the first divine pair whose union gave rise to the world and its many creatures. Within the egg also existed a multitude of seeds, the origins of all living things, symbolizing the diversity and abundance of life that would come into being. This cosmic egg and its contents represent the start of life and creation in a form that humans could understand and imagine, with the union of earth and sky as the source of all existence. The Orphic cosmogony, as told through these ancient fragments, shows a universe born out of water and earth, shaped by time and necessity, and brought into order through the great serpent Chronos and the unyielding force of Ananke. Their dance and power unfold the cosmos from the chaos of darkness and void into light and life. Through their influence, the universe moves in cycles of birth, growth, and transformation, endlessly spinning the wheel of time and destiny. The silence before the first principles hints at something beyond understanding, a mystery at the heart of all things that cannot be fully spoken or known. Yet that mystery gives rise to the forces we can perceive and name. Chronos, as the unaging time, holds the cosmos in his coils, eternal and constant, driving the endless passage of moments that shape all reality. The serpent form of Chronos, with multiple heads and wings, shows his power and reach touching all corners of the universe, while Ananke's arms extend through all space, binding everything together with necessity. From their union comes the cosmic egg, the source of life and the beginning of divine generations. The birth of Oranos and Gaia from this egg signals the start of the physical world, the heavens above and the earth below, from which all else springs. These ancient stories speak of a universe ordered by powerful and eternal forces, where time and fate are the deepest laws, guiding the unfolding of existence and shaping the fate of gods and men alike. In this vision, creation is not a simple event, but a complex process, a gradual coming together of elements, forces, and beings that build the cosmos layer by layer. Time, necessity, earth, water, light, darkness, and the living egg all play their roles in this great unfolding, revealing a world born from mystery and shaped by powerful, eternal principles. In the rich tapestry of Orphic cosmology, there is a vision of a supreme god known as Phanes, who is described as a shining being with golden wings upon his shoulders, bulls' heads growing on his sides, and a great serpent coiled on his head, presenting an image that combines the forms of many animals, symbolizing the fullness of life and creation. This figure, known as Protagonos, or the firstborn, is honored as the first god of the third great triad, representing the beginning of all that exists and the source of divine order. He is also called Zeus, signifying the ruler of all things and the whole world, and Pan, meaning all, reflecting his nature as the all-encompassing principle behind the cosmos. This second genealogy within the Orphic tradition reveals these intelligible principles, the deep, hidden origins of the gods and the cosmos itself. According to Orphic teachings, the gods were not eternal from the very beginning, but were born into existence just as mortals are born, each coming into being in a sequence of creation. Orpheus, the original inventor of the gods' names and their stories, who was also respected as a true theologian, described the birth of the gods and their deeds. much like the epic poet Homer, particularly about the divine origins. Orpheus explained that everything came first from water, hydros, which was the origin of all things, and from this water, mud formed. From the combination of water and mud arose a living creature, unusual and powerful, with a lion's head on one side, a bull's head on the other, and a god's face in the center. This being was called Heracles, and also Chronos, or time. This powerful figure, both Heracles and Chronos, generated a great cosmic egg filled full with life and energy. The egg, as it grew and matured, was broken apart by the force of its creator's power. From the broken egg's crown rose Uranos, or heaven, and from the lower part sank Gaia, the earth, marking the birth of the sky and land. Along with them, an incorporeal god emerged, known as Protagonos or Phanes, the radiant firstborn god who represents the beginning of life and light. This creation story shows a universe born from the primal elements of water and mud, shaped by the mighty forces of time and creation, embodied in Heracles and Chronos. The story continues to describe Chronos, the immortal and unaging time, as the father of Aether, the bright and pure upper air, and Chaos, the vast and limitless chasm below. Chaos has no base and no place for settling, stretching infinitely in all directions, representing the empty space and the unknown from which the cosmos takes form. From this divine Aether, Chronos fashioned a shining white egg, glowing with light and potential. This egg is the source from which Phanes, the god of light and life, was born, bringing order, energy, and life into the world. Another source, the Epicurus fragment, adds a vivid image of the world's beginning as a great cosmic egg, encircled and constricted by the wind. This wind is described as the entwined forms of Chronos, time, and Ananke, inevitability, wrapped serpent-like around the egg like a wreath or a belt. As this wind tightened its hold, it began to squeeze nature, applying greater and greater force until the world was divided into two halves, the two hemispheres of the cosmos. Following this division, the smallest particles, the atoms, began to sort themselves into their places, organizing matter and shaping the universe's structure. This cosmic process illustrates the power of Chronos and Ananke working together, the relentless force of time and fate coiling around the egg of creation and driving the separation and order of the world. The Orphic cosmogony presents a universe born not in a single moment, but through complex, unfolding actions of powerful forces. Water and earth giving rise to life, time and inevitability shaping creation, and the cosmic egg bursting forth to bring sky and earth, light and darkness, order and life into being. The figures of Heracles and Chronos merge to show the union of strength and eternal time, while the cosmic egg symbolizes the potential and birth of all things. From this egg come the great primal gods and the principles that govern the cosmos. The imagery of the serpent-wrapped egg and the breaking of the egg into sky and earth is a vivid symbol of creation as both unity and division, a cycle of birth and separation that continues in the world. Through these ancient myths, the Orphic tradition reveals a vision of the universe that is alive, powerful, and deeply ordered by the eternal forces of time and fate. Where gods are born, life unfolds, and the cosmos is constantly shaped by the dance of these primal energies. In the Orphic tradition, the formation of the cosmos is described with vivid imagery that speaks to the natural order emerging from chaos. The world begins as a swirling mass where the atoms, the smallest particles of matter, move freely within the vast revolution of the sky and stars. These atoms are divided by their nature. The lighter and finer particles rise upward to form the bright air, known as aether or ether, which is the pure upper air filled with light. Alongside this, the most rarefied wind, likely identified as chaos or chaos, drifts above, representing the vast, empty, and boundless space of the cosmos. Meanwhile, the heaviest and most impure atoms sink downward, shaping the earth or Gi, which includes both the solid dry land and the flowing waters of the sea, often called pontos. This separation of matter into layers, air above, earth, and water below, illustrates the beginning of order from the undifferentiated whole. The motion of these atoms is driven by a powerful, serpent-like wind that circles the universe. This wind is not a simple breeze but a divine force, entwining the cosmos and holding it in motion. It is identified with Chronos, or Chronos, the god of time, working together with Ananke, the force of inevitability or necessity. These two forces coil around the universe like a serpent, keeping all things in continuous movement and shaping the unfolding cosmos through their eternal dance. The Orphic Argonautica, a later Greek epic, describes the scene in a similar way. It speaks of the stern Ananke, meaning inevitability or fate, and Chronos, or time, as ancient powers born from chaos. These two forces produce Aether, the bright upper air, and a magnificent two-faced, two-sexed being called Eros. This primordial Eros is glorious and ever-born, meaning he is eternal and constantly renewed. He is also the father of Nyx, or night, a dark and mysterious figure in the cosmos. This figure of Eros is sometimes called Phanes in later stories, meaning the shining or manifest one, the god who first appeared and brought light and life into the dark universe. The Orphic hymn to Heracles praises a figure called Aion, or Aeon, another name for time, eternity, or unending duration. This Aion is described as a self-grown, tireless, and noble offspring of Ge, the earth, who flashes forth with the firstborn scales, symbolizing the passage of time and the endless cycle of life. Beyond the Orphic text, Chronos, or Chronos, the god of time, is often identified with Chronos or Chronus, the Titan who is the father of Zeus and ruled before the Olympian gods. This identification is common in classical literature, such as in the works of Pindar and Cicero. However, the primordial Orphic god of eternity is often called Aion, highlighting the idea of endless time as distinct from measured passing time. In Pindar's Olympian odes, Chronos is recognized as the ultimate judge who ensures that all things come to their proper end, whether just or unjust. Time cannot be cheated. It brings about the completion of all that is fated. In Olympian 10, Pindar tells of Heracles founding the Olympic Games and naming a hill after Chronos the Titan. This hill was a place of worship where the Moirai, or Fates, stood guard, consecrating the rites and marking the role of Chronos, the god of time, as the final judge of truth and destiny. The slow but sure passage of time brings about the fulfillment of all things ordained by fate, a truth well understood by Pindar and reflected in his poetic praise. In Nemean Ode 4, he affirms that the throne of fate, given by destiny, will be completed through Chronos, even if time's progress seems slow. And in Paean 2, he wishes that mighty Chronos may continue to draw near, carrying all things forward in their appointed course. These verses show the ancient Greek respect for time as a powerful divine force that governs all life and events, ensuring that nothing remains unfinished. The god Chronos, though slow in movement, is patient and unstoppable, embodying the inexorable flow of time that leads to the final truth and order of the cosmos. Through these hymns and poems, time is more than just a measurement. It is a living god, present in every moment, shaping the rise and fall of gods and mortals alike. The Orphic and classical traditions together present a vision of the universe born from the mingling of elemental forces, set into motion and order by the entwined power of Chronos and Ananke. They show how the smallest particles separate to create earth, sea, and sky, how light and darkness arise, and how the gods themselves are born from these primal beginnings. Time, as both Chronos and Aion, is the great mover and judge, the eternal principle that brings all things to their destined end, while also enabling the eternal cycles of birth, growth, and renewal. This vision of time and creation is woven into the fabric of Greek myth, reflecting deep truths about the nature of the cosmos and humanity's place within it. In ancient Greek literature, time, often called Chronos or Chronos, appears as a powerful and all-encompassing force that shapes both the natural world and human destiny, appearing in many forms and ideas across poetry, tragedy, and myth. Bacchylides, a Greek lyric poet of the 5th century before Christ, speaks of Chronos as the radiant father of a daughter, the personified day of the month, showing how time is linked to the cycles of days and months, marking the passage of life in a rhythmic and orderly way. This image highlights how time is not just a measure, but a living presence that guides the flow of days and seasons, always moving forward, never wary of its steady course. In the tragic plays of Aeschylus, Chronos is portrayed as a force that gathers and collects, like when he gathers the sands of the shore upon the cables, marking the passage of moments as armies depart for battle, reminding us that time records all deeds and changes, carrying the past into the present and future. In another of Aeschylus's works, The Libation Bearers, time is spoken of as the power that accomplishes all things and will eventually bring cleansing and justice to a polluted household, driving out disaster and misfortune through the natural flow of fate. Here, time is connected with the turning of fortune's dice, suggesting that chance and destiny unfold in time's steady course, favoring those who endure and remain steadfast. Aeschylus also presents Chronos as ever-aging time in Prometheus bound, teaching all things with its endless passing, showing that time is a teacher, a force that shapes wisdom and understanding through experience. Even Prometheus, the firebringer and rebel, must recognize time's power, though he struggles to keep a calm and sober mind against its relentless lessons. The Greek epic poet Apollonius Rhodius, writing in the 3rd century before Christ, tells of strange creatures gathered around Circe, the witch, beings with mismatched limbs that are neither fully man nor beast. These monsters sprang spontaneously from the primeval mud, created by Gaia, the earth, before it had solidified under a sun that did not yet shine with rain. This wild chaos of life forms was then ordered by Chronos, who combined the elements and brought animal creation into harmony and shape. This tale shows time as the great organizer, the force that moves disorder into order, that brings life from confusion and wildness into the forms and patterns we recognize. Later, Quintus Smyrnaeus, a poet from the 4th century of the Common Era, describes Zeus riding in a chariot pulled by the 4 winds, the Anemoi, Euros, Boreas, Zephyros, and Notos, each representing the east, north, west, and south winds. Iris, the rainbow-plumed messenger goddess, leads this stormy team beneath the yoke of Zeus's eternal chariot, a chariot framed by Ion or Eon, the immortal time, made from adamant by tireless hands. Here, time is the frame and the eternal foundation that holds the power of the gods, showing how divine strength and natural forces are bound and moved through the endless progression of time. An anonymous epigram from the 1st century before Christ honors Caesar, linking his deeds and prosperous labors with the name of Ion, time's eternal aspect. In this verse, Caesar is praised for calming the storms of war and the clash of shields, his fame inscribed on the lips of time itself, suggesting that great actions live forever through the remembrance time grants. This connection between time and glory shows how mortal achievements are caught up in the flow of eternity, preserved by time's endless memory. Across these texts, time takes many forms, sometimes a radiant father or a shining daughter, sometimes an ever-aging teacher or an eternal frame for divine power. It moves through the cycles of days and months, guides the rise and fall of fortunes, brings order from chaos, and carries the names and deeds of heroes into lasting fame. Time is not merely a passive measure, but an active, living presence in the cosmos, shaping both gods and mortals, the natural world and human history, always flowing forward, unstoppable and patient, never tiring in its role as the great mover and keeper of all things. This ancient vision of Chronos and Ion as gods of time reveals the deep respect the Greeks held for the passage of moments, the unfolding of fate, and the eternal rhythm that governs the universe. In ancient thought, the figure of Chronos, or Chronos, the god of time, is closely connected and sometimes identified with the Titan Chronos, known to the Romans as Saturnus or Saturn. Cicero, the Roman rhetorician of the 1st century before Christ, explained this link clearly by saying that Saturnus, or Chronos in Greek, was the being who maintained the turning of the seasons and the periods of time, the natural cycles that govern life on Earth. The Greeks use the same word, Chronos or Chronos, for both the god of time and the Titan who ruled the cosmos in earlier ages. This shows how deeply intertwined ideas about time and the powers of the heavens were, as time was seen as the force that keeps the world turning in its steady revolution, marking the passage of all moments and seasons without fail. The great Greek epic poet Nonnus, writing in the 5th century after Christ, brings these images vividly to life in his long poem, the Dionysiaca. He describes Zeus, king of the gods, riding through the skies in Chronos' chariot, pulled by 4 winged horses. These horses are the Anemoi, the 4 winds, each with power over the air and the weather. Zeus, strong and fearless, wears his aegis breastplate and swoops down through storms, showing the link between divine power and the unstoppable flow of time itself. This vision portrays Chronos' chariot as the vehicle of time, drawn by forces of nature carrying the king of the gods over the ever-changing sky. Nonnus also tells of a great flood, a terrible deluge that covered the earth in water, threatening to break the universe apart. He says that without intervention, the whole frame of the cosmos would have been undone. And even Ion, or Eon, the eternal time that governs endless generations, would have dissolved the structure of mankind's creation. But Zeus, with the help of Poseidon, god of the sea, who wields his earth-splitting trident, intervened. Poseidon struck the Thessalian mountain, splitting it and allowing the floodwaters to flow away, letting the earth rise again. This story shows time as a power that can dissolve and remake creation, but also as something that the gods can control to preserve the order of the world. Chronos goes on to describe the sorrow and suffering of human life, how labor and care never end for mankind. Ion, the everlasting time, stands beside Zeus and reveals to him the endless pain and lack of happiness that humans endure. At this time, the god Bacchus, also called Dionysos, had not yet been born from the thigh of Zeus, and so mankind had no rest from their troubles. Wine, which Bacchus brings, had not yet sweetened the air or filled the world with joy and release. The Horai, the goddesses of the seasons and daughters of light, were still joyless, weaving simple garlands for the gods from meadow grass. Without Bacchus to inspire the dance and celebration, this grace was incomplete and without true benefit, enchanting only the eyes of those who watched, but failing to lift the spirits or bring true delight. Through these images, time appears as both a steady force moving the heavens and a witness to human sorrow, while the gods intervene to bring moments of joy and relief. The deep connection between Chronos, Ion, and the Titan Chronos shows how ancient thinkers saw time as the eternal ruler of change and order, linked with the cycles of nature, divine will, and the fate of mankind. Time is not only the measure of days and seasons, but the very frame within which all life unfolds, from the greatest gods to the humblest human. It carries the power to destroy and rebuild, to bring suffering and also, through the gifts of the gods, to offer joy and meaning in the endless flow of existence. Ion Kama, also known as Aion, or time in his many forms, appeared before Zeus, holding the key of generation, his white hair flowing like a shock over Zeus's knees, his long beard falling down as he bowed deeply, bending his neck and straining his whole back in humble prayer. As he knelt, the Ancient of Days, the shepherd guiding life that ever flows, reached out his infinite hand and spoke to Zeus, urging him to see the sorrows of the world filled with despair. Ion told Zeus to look closely and see how the goddess Enyo, the fierce spirit of war, had driven the whole earth mad, season after season, cutting down the harvest of young lives that perish quickly. The earth was worn by endless violence and loss. Ion reminded Zeus of the great flood he had sent upon all nations, when streams of airy floods boiled high in the air, clashing against the nearby moon, a storm that marked the passing of life and the ruin of many. He lamented the short lives of men, the swift passing of youth, and the sadness that followed. In his weariness, Ion declared that he renounced the divine helm, the power and responsibility to guide the world's fate. He no longer wished to handle the world's cable, the control of life's ever-renewing course. He wished that some other being among the blessed gods, one better than he was, might take the rudder of life, the guidance of his long years, for he was tired of pitying the unlucky race of suffering humans. Ion spoke of the heavy burden of old age that blights youth and slows a man's steps, making him bow his head and tremble as he walks with too many footsteps, leaning on a staff, a faithful servant to the weariness of age. He spoke of fate, which often hides young lives in the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, ending the young bridegroom's life shortly after his wedding, breaking the bonds of a union meant to last forever. Though marriage is a joyful event, accompanied by Athena's sacred music and the sweet sound of pipes, Ion questioned what meaning such happiness had, when the harp's sound near the bridal chamber could not comfort a heavy heart. Even Eros, the god of love himself, would stop the dance and throw away the bridal torch if he saw a wedding without joy. Ion then addressed the hope that some say has been given to humans, a medicine to make them forget their troubles and save their lives. But he wished that Pandora had never opened the jar from heaven, the source of all misery, for she was the sweet bane of mankind, releasing troubles upon the world. He blamed Prometheus, the god who cared for mortals, for bringing suffering to humanity. Instead of stealing fire, the source of all evil, Prometheus should have taken and given men the sweet nectar that delights the hearts of gods, to bring them joy rather than pain. In these words, Ion reveals the deep sorrow of endless suffering that weighs upon humanity, the harshness of time that ages and destroys, the tragedies that strike even the happiest moments, and the burdens that gods themselves sometimes wish to cast away. This vision shows time as both the endless flow of life and the heavy force of fate, a power that guides the world but also feels the pain of those it governs, longing for relief that does not yet come.